The woman my husband loves so much deliberately dropped the only relic my mother left me, a jade bracelet, during our anniversary celebration. My husband, in an attempt to protect her, went so far as to accuse me in front of everyone of making a fuss over nothing, and even slapped me. I covered my face, shaking with anger, unable to stop the tears from falling. Alexander, that was a gift from my mother. Do you think I'm being too sensitive? He put his arm around Sophia, who was smiling next to him, but his eyes were cold. It's okay if a broken bracelet is broken, I'll pay you double later. Today is our anniversary, don't let this little thing affect everyone's good mood. Hearing his relaxed tone, it seemed like it wasn't my mother's relic that had been broken, but just a random little thing. I felt dizzy all of a sudden, and my stomach ached faintly. That night, I almost miscarried due to my emotional turmoil and was rushed to the hospital. Meanwhile, Alexander posted intimate photos of himself and his sister Sophia on his social media. My good friend Isabella, a lawyer, arrived at the hospital. I was lying in bed, looking weak and lifeless. I told Isabella, "Help me, I want to leave him. I'm willing to give up everything, as long as I can escape from this place that makes me feel suffocated." The ward was filled with the strong smell of disinfectant, which made me feel sick. The pain in my stomach was a constant reminder that the little life I was expecting was slowly disappearing. Isabella held my cold hand tightly, her eyes filled with tears and her voice full of suppressed anger. "Emily, don't worry, just focus on getting better. The baby comes first. When you're back on your feet, I won't let Alexander get away with it." I shook my head weakly and handed Isabella the phone, which was trembling in my hands. The screen showed a post from Alexander's WeChat moments, sent half an hour ago. "Thank you, Sophia. Having you by my side is the true light of my life." In the accompanying photo, Sophia was shyly leaning against him, both of them smiling happily at the camera, as if they had just got married. The background looked like a private room in an exclusive restaurant, with an elaborate cake on the table and a candle with a 3 on it. They had been together for 3 years. Isabella's voice suddenly stopped. She looked at the photo and then at my pale face. She was shaking with anger and didn't know how to comfort me. I immediately called Alexander. "He's gone too far. His wife and child are in the hospital, and he's out with another woman. Emily, don't worry, I'm here, and I won't let anything bad happen to you." After the phone rang a few times, Isabella answered and put it on speaker. Alexander's voice sounded a little tipsy and impatient, with Sophia's affected voice in the background. "Hello, Isabella? What do you want? I'm a little busy right now. Did Emily send you to tell me something again? Please tell her to stop. I'm not impressed by her tears anymore, and I can't stand it when she does things like this to arouse sympathy." Before Isabella could say anything, the line went dead. Her face immediately turned pale, and her heart filled with pain and anger. She couldn't help but curse Alexander under her breath. I can't hold back my tears either. They're running down my cheeks and soaking my pillow. "Isabella, I really can't hold on much longer. Now I can't even take care of my own child. Please help me leave. I don't want to see him again." Isabella was about to speak when the doctor hurried in, holding a report in his hands and looking very serious. "Mrs. Alexander, I'm really sorry, but we've done all we can. You were in a very serious condition when you were admitted, and you had been very emotional. The baby could not be saved." The doctor's words were like a heavy blow, and I felt great pain in my heart. How could such a fragile little life just disappear? I had waited 3 years and taken fertility injections for 3 years to finally conceive, and now I had lost it? I stared blankly at the ceiling, feeling as if my soul had been sucked out of me, and I was just an empty shell lying on the hospital bed. Isabella tried to hold back her tears as she took care of the formalities. I felt completely drained, and could only watch as she busied herself. When I felt a little better, Isabella helped me to check out of the hospital. She wanted to take me back to Alexander's place, but I refused. I didn't want to see Alexander. I was afraid that if I saw him, I would be reminded of his betrayal and the little life that had left me. "Take me to the small apartment we used to live in." That's where Alexander and I lived after we graduated from university. Alexander was ambitious and didn't want to go home and take over the family business. He wanted to build a career on his own, so I followed him and started from scratch. Although life was very difficult at that time, it was also the happiest time for us. Later, when his career took off, we moved into the villa we have now, and the small apartment remained empty. Seeing that I was so determined, Isabella didn't ask any more questions, and just silently drove me to the old building. Stepping into the small 60-square-meter apartment, I could still feel the warmth of the past in the air. The walls were covered with the wallpaper we had chosen together, and on the balcony was the first narcissus he had given me, though it had now withered. Everything was still arranged as it had been before, but we were no longer the same people we had been then. I stayed here for 3 days. During those 3 days, Alexander did not call or send a message. It felt like the child that had not yet been born and I had never existed in his life. Isabella visited me every day, bringing me food and chatting with me, but I could only respond silently. After 4 days, she brought a document. "Emily, this is the divorce agreement I have prepared. Take a look. I have tried to fight for your best interests in the division of assets. Alexander has come this far over the years, and you have also contributed a lot, and you deserve this." I took the agreement, didn't read it carefully, and went straight to the last page, signing Emily's name. The tip of the pen scratched the paper, as if ending my 7-year marriage and youth. "That's it, Isabella. I don't care about the property. All I want is to end this quickly and leave this place as soon as possible." Isabella looked at me, as if she wanted to say something but didn't know where to start, and finally just sighed softly. "Okay, whatever you say. So what are your plans next?" I looked out the window at the gloomy sky and said softly, "I want to leave here and go somewhere where no one knows me, and start over." "Have you thought about where you want to go?" I thought about it for a moment. My mother was from the South, and she always said she wanted to go back to New England when she was alive. "Go to New England, find a town with water." Isabella nodded. "Okay, I'll help you arrange it." Before leaving the apartment, I took one last look at the small home that was once full of warmth and anticipation. Now all I could see was a mess and a broken heart. I took only a few changes of clothes and the broken piece of the jade bracelet my mother left me. I carefully wrapped it in a velvet cloth and put it in my pocket. I kept everything else, including all the things Alexander had given me. Those souvenirs of our happy memories now seemed to mock me. 7 years of my youth had been wasted. The day I left was rainy. Isabella drove me to the airport. As the car left the city, I looked out the window at the streetscape rapidly receding outside. This place where I had lived for more than 20 years suddenly felt so strange and indifferent to me. My phone was on silent, but the screen suddenly lit up. It was Alexander calling. I wondered if he had finally remembered me, or was it just that he had noticed I wasn't home and wanted to call to make sure. I gave a bitter smile, then blocked all of Alexander's contact information, broke the SIM card, and threw it out the window. "Emily, let bygones be bygones. From now on, you have to live for yourself." Isabella spoke firmly as she gripped the steering wheel. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and responded softly. Meanwhile, in the office of the CEO of the Alexander Group, Alexander hung up on another unanswered phone call with some annoyance. He had been busy with an important project these past few days, and he also needed to comfort Sophia. He also admitted that he had neglected me. However, he never imagined that I would actually choose to leave home. He thought I was just having a temper tantrum, like I had done before, and that I would come back on my own once he had appeased me a little or just ignored me for a few days. However, this time, there was no answer on the phone and no one at home. He sent his assistant to check on the small apartment, but there was no one there either, and all he found was a signed divorce agreement. Divorce? Alexander chuckled slightly as he looked at the photo his assistant had sent on his phone. "Emily, you're getting more and more clever. Do you really think this will make me give in?" He felt a little uneasy, but it was quickly overshadowed by anger. He simply didn't believe that I could do better without him. He had always felt that over the years I had become accustomed to living a privileged and wealthy life. He casually threw his phone on the table, picked up the other document and forced himself to start working. But the feeling of restlessness in his heart grew like a vine, making it impossible for him to concentrate. He suddenly remembered the scene when he received Isabella's phone call while Emily was being taken to the hospital that day. He had indeed drunk too much that day, and Sophia was crying next to him, saying that she was scared by Emily's friends. He was annoyed and said something inappropriate. As for the child, he was actually looking forward to it. He always felt that Emily was trying to keep him with the child. He no longer felt the same way about her as he had before, and all he felt was resentment at being bored and tied down every day. He vaguely remembered that when they first got together, Emily was not like this. She was lively and independent, with her own work and goals. But after they got married, especially when his career became more and more successful, she seemed to have changed. She became more and more dependent on him, gradually becoming like a typical but uninteresting rich housewife. He blamed all this on the boredom of marriage and the secret he kept inside. He always suspected that their marriage had been a gentle trap set by Emily's family to take advantage of the power of the Alexander Group. Emily's family never made any demands on the surface, but the suspicion in his heart had taken root, making him feel that every move Emily made had a purpose. Late at night, after the project meeting, Alexander returned to the silent and empty villa exhausted. Opening the door, there was no familiar light, no hot midnight snack, just cold darkness and silence. For the first time, he felt unease at the emptiness of the luxurious home he had built with his own hands. Alexander stood in the dark for a while before stumbling to the living room and turning on the lights. He went to the wine cabinet and poured himself a glass of whiskey, gulping it down. The burning sensation in his throat stung a little, but it did nothing to fill the emptiness and restlessness in his heart. He looked around, his eyes filled with the traces left by Emily. The sofa she had personally chosen, the flowers she had arranged herself, and her usual glass, which was still sitting on the coffee table. He couldn't help but go over to it, pick it up and gently touch it. Then he couldn't resist bringing his lips to the lipstick stain that remained on the rim. Suddenly, he slammed the glass onto the floor with such force that the sharp sound of it breaking was especially harsh in the silence of the night. "Emily, what do you want from me?" he shouted, his voice full of pent-up anger and a fear he didn't even know he had. Alexander took out his phone and dialed the number again, which had already been switched off. The machine's female voice told him that the other party had switched off their phone. Distracted, he threw the phone onto the sofa, sat down and ran his hands through his hair. Then his eyes caught the corner of the coffee table, where there was a forgotten photo frame. In it was a picture of their first wedding anniversary. Emily in the photo was smiling sweetly, snuggled up against him, her eyes full of love. He was also hugging her tightly, showing that he really doted on her. Back then, his heart was not filled with suspicion and weariness. Back then, they really felt in love. This thought slowly pierced his heart like a dull knife. He suddenly remembered that day at the banquet, when Sophia accidentally dropped the jade bracelet and Emily turned pale, her eyes betraying her despair. He remembered that when she called him from the hospital, her voice was weak and trembling, as if she was pleading for something. He also remembered the child he had never met. An unprecedented wave of remorse and panic washed over him, as if he were being overwhelmed by a tidal wave. Had he really done something wrong? Alexander suddenly stood up, ran into the bedroom and opened the closet. Emily's clothes, bags and jewelry were almost all there. Some frequently used items were missing, as well as the jewelry box containing her mother's relics, which she had always treasured. He hurried into the study and opened the safe. All the valuable gifts he had given her were there, but a design manuscript he had given her a long time ago could not be found. That manuscript was a promise he had made to himself when he had no resources. "Emily, one day I will hand over this dream home to you." She took away the things that really mattered to her. She left behind the things that he felt were important. This discovery made Alexander's heart tighten. She wasn't angry. She was serious, giving up on him. He rushed out of the villa, started the car and drove at high speed to the small apartment they had once lived in. Perhaps she was hiding there. The lights in the old stairwell flickered on and off. Alexander's heart was beating fast, as if it would jump right out of his chest. He used the spare key to open the door, which he knew so well. The room was dark, and the air smelled of dust. He felt around the wall for the light switch. The room was empty, and a thin layer of dust covered the furniture. The withered daffodil on the balcony looked like it was silently telling the story of the past. On the table, the divorce agreement lay quietly, next to a set of house keys. Alexander walked over, picked up the agreement, and looked at Emily's determined signature. A chill ran through his heart, as if he had fallen into an abyss. He sat helplessly on the cold floor, leaning against the wall. In this little house where they had once been full of joy, he realized for the first time that he had lost more than just a wife and a child. More importantly, he had pushed away Emily, who had once loved him wholeheartedly. He closed his eyes in pain, and his mind involuntarily recalled bits and pieces of the past. The first time she wore the dress he had given her, she was both shy and excited. The confidence in her eyes when she stayed up late helping him with the project planning. the joy of anticipation on her face when she discovered she was pregnant and carefully told him the good news, and the day at the banquet when she held the broken piece of the jade bracelet, her eyes without luster were heartbreaking. All these images played over and over in Alexander's mind. Ah! Alexander growled under his breath and slammed his hands on the ground. Why had it come to this? He had always thought it was Emily who had changed, that it was the marriage that had changed. Now he realized that it was actually him who had changed the most. It was his doubts, his indifference and his self-righteousness that had destroyed their love and their home. It was even he who had taken their child's life. The child, he whispered, tears finally falling. He took out his phone and, with a trembling hand, tried to dial a number, but found that there was no one in the address book to call. Should he call Isabella? She was probably furious by now. What about Sophia? The very name made him feel sick. Over the years, he had taken her gentleness and adoration as a comfort to escape his marriage, but never realized the calculation and greed behind her smile. The screen of his phone lit up, reflecting his disheveled appearance. He suddenly thought of Emily's parents. The kind elderly couple had always treated him like their own son. At the beginning, he had solemnly promised to take good care of Emily for the rest of his life. But now he had lost Emily. How was he going to explain that to his parents? No, he couldn't lose Emily. He decided to go get her back, no matter what the cost. Alexander jumped up, rushed out of the apartment and drove back to the office. He had to use all his strength to find Emily. He would definitely make it in time. She couldn't have gone far. I settled in a beautiful New England town. I rented a small loft near the river, where I could see the rowboats glide by through the open window. The air was filled with the smell of water and flowers. The first few days were really hard. The despair of losing my child, combined with the pain of being betrayed by Alexander, tortured me every day. Back then, I often woke up in the middle of the night, holding the broken pieces of the jade bracelet my mother left me, and silently weeping. But I knew I couldn't give up. I couldn't wallow in my grief. For the sake of the child who had already left, and for my own sake, I had to continue living and doing well. I started to pick up my paintbrush again. In college, I had dreamed of becoming an independent designer, but then I gave up that dream for Alexander and the family, and I was willing to return to family life. Now I just want to find my old self again. I used to sketch everywhere in the town, using my brush to depict the small bridges and flowing water, as well as the houses with white walls and black tiles. Slowly, my heart has become much more peaceful. I found a job playing the guzheng in a small tea house in town. When I'm free, the beautiful music that comes from my fingertips makes me feel better. Isabella sometimes came to visit me and brought news of what was going on outside. She said that Alexander was going crazy trying to find me, contacting lots of people and even going to my aunt's house. My aunt was so angry that she fell ill, and Isabella was taking care of her. She also mentioned that Alexander went to the hospital to see my aunt and knelt in front of the bed to admit his fault, but was severely scolded by my aunt and driven out. In addition, Sophia was completely abandoned by Alexander, and he took back the house and luxury goods he had previously given her. She even got into trouble for commercial fraud. Hearing this, I didn't feel anything at all, but instead I felt a little ridiculous. I had long expected this to happen, so why did I do it in the first place? These belated compensations and retaliations no longer mean anything to me. Lost lives and broken hearts cannot be restored. Isabella looked at me with an expression that did not fluctuate, and said carefully, "Emily, Alexander has come to see me several times, and has been asking about you. He said he realizes he was wrong, and wants to see you to apologize to you in person. Emily, why don't you go and see him?" I put down my paintbrush, looked out the window at the calm river, and said softly, "No, there is nothing more to say between us." Isabella sighed and said, "I understand. I will help you refuse him." As the days passed, New England spring finally arrived. The willows along the river sprouted buds, and the peach blossoms outside the attic window bloomed beautifully. I had already painted quite a few works and decided to sell them at a small but well-known gallery in town. I didn't think anyone would pay attention to the works of an unknown artist like me, but they were quite popular. Slowly, I became somewhat famous, and even people from outside the area came to ask me to paint for them. At first, I was able to rely on myself and lead a stable and independent life in this quiet town. I thought that this would continue forever. Until that day, an unexpected person came and disrupted the peace. That afternoon, I was organizing paintings in the gallery when I suddenly saw a familiar but annoying figure appear in the doorway. Alexander had lost a lot of weight, and the suit that had fit him before now looked a little loose. There were some green stubble on his chin, his eyes were bloodshot, and he looked exhausted and depressed. He looked straight at me with a complex expression in his eyes, one that was tinged with pain and remorse, and there seemed to be a hint of pleading. My heart tightened, and I took a step back reflexively. My face immediately turned cold. The proprietress of the gallery sensed something was wrong and came over to ask, "Emily, who is this?" I impatiently interrupted her and turned to leave through the back door. "Emily!" Alexander called out urgently, and quickly walked up to block my way. "Emily, don't go, please. Just give me 5 minutes. No, 3 minutes. Let me talk to you." He grabbed my arm, his voice hoarse, sounding tired and desperate. I stopped in my tracks, but didn't look at him, my tone cold. "Alexander, I don't think we have anything left to talk about. Please leave and don't bother me again." Alexander froze for a moment, and the pain in his eyes deepened. Suddenly, with a plop, he knelt down in front of the gallery entrance, where everyone was watching him. Alexander had always been very proud, but this time he knelt down without any regard for his reputation. He said to Emily, "I know I was wrong. I really realize that I was wrong. I'm sorry to you. I'm sorry to our child. You can do whatever you want. Please don't ignore me." There were whispers and pointing around. Everyone seemed to think I had come to beg for forgiveness. "A good-looking boy, girl, why don't you forgive him?" "That's right. This young man really looks like he regrets it. Girl, you can think about it again." The crowd was growing, and all I could feel was humiliation and anger. He always tried to control everything in such extreme ways that I had to give in to him. "Alex, get up!" I shouted. "Who are you trying to impress with this pathetic display? Are you trying to win sympathy? Or are you trying to make me forgive you?" "That's not it. Emily, it really isn't." His voice was choking with emotion as he tried to explain. I just don't know how to make you calm down, really." I felt like I was hearing a great joke, and I couldn't help laughing out loud, but tears followed. "Alexander, your little lover has destroyed the relics my mother left me. She only left me a jade bracelet, and now she has broken it. And not only have you betrayed me, you have also lost the child I was carrying. You have trampled on my 7 years of affection. You have destroyed what we had before. Please tell me, how can I not be angry? How can we talk about forgiveness?" Although I didn't raise my voice, every word stung, full of sadness and resentment. Alexander was speechless, his head bowed, his face full of shame, only painful sobs and tears falling incessantly. The surrounding chatter grew louder and louder, and everyone's gaze at Alex changed from sympathy to disdain and accusation. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my emotions, to calm myself and regain my senses. "Alex, you'd better go. Please don't make me hate you completely, considering we were once husband and wife." After saying this, I no longer looked at him, walked around him, and quickly walked out of the gallery. Behind me came his painful cries, calling my name over and over again, but I did not turn back. Never again. Later, I moved away from the small town in New England. Because I didn't want to be subjected to other people's gossip, I went to a small coastal town farther away. Isabella helped me settle things in New England. She told me that Alexander had knelt in front of the gallery for a long time and finally fainted. He was taken to the hospital. When he woke up, he asked the owner of the gallery to sell me all the paintings he had left. He didn't bother me again, but asked Isabella to give me a document. It was a property transfer agreement, transferring half of Alexander Group's shares and most of its real estate to my name. I asked Isabella to return the document as it was. I didn't need his compensation, and I didn't care about his wealth. I just wanted to be completely separated from him and the past he represented. Another year passed. I opened a small art studio by the sea and also ran a cafe. Life was quiet but fulfilling. The sound of the waves became the most familiar melody in my daily life. In my spare time, I like to sit on the beach, watching the waves rise and fall, feeling the sea breeze gently blowing across my face. The pain of losing my child still makes my heart ache in the middle of the night. But time is the best healer after all. The wound has not completely healed, but it no longer bleeds, and the scab is gradually bringing new hope. I began to try to accept new friends, and I even met a gentle and humble man. He is the librarian in the small town, likes to read and paint, and we have a lot in common. He knows about my past, doesn't ask too much, and just quietly stays by my side. I understand that starting a new relationship is not easy, but I am willing to try. That day, Isabella came again. We sat by the window of the cafe, looking out at the blue sea. "Let me tell you something," Isabella said, stirring the coffee in her cup with a slightly complicated tone. "Alexander seems to have hit rock bottom." I paused for a moment without saying anything. "He has handed over the company to a professional manager, but he drinks all day long. Some time ago, he almost had an accident due to alcoholism. His mother wanted to send him abroad for recuperation, but he didn't want to go. He feels like he has lost something." Isabella paused for a moment, looked at my calm profile, and asked softly, "Emily, do you regret it a little?" I put down my coffee cup, turned to Isabella, and gave a faint smile. There was no bitterness in the smile on my face, only relief. "I don't feel any regret." I gently touched my chest, where I kept the broken piece of the jade bracelet my mother had left me. The cold feeling reminded me of the pain I had once felt, but it also made me realize that it was all in the past. I had spent 7 years loving someone, and another 2 years forgetting and healing. Now, I just wanted to live my life. I looked out the window, and saw a white sailboat setting sail on the sea, heading into the distance. Let bygones be bygones. One must always look forward. As for Alexander, his pain, remorse, and end are no longer my business. Some people and things, once missed, are never to be regained. The moment I decided to turn and leave, the memories of those 7 years were locked away forever. Now, I am ready to welcome my next spring.